Good morning. Nobody's responding to me. I know you're chewing and talking. All right. Baby shark, do 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 do. Anything to get your attention. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a video from Steve Cook's company that for those of you who were not here for the morning sessions, I think will give a good overview of what we were actually discussing this morning. Okay? You can still chew. Chew and watch.
I've never worked at a place that had a chaplaincy program before. It's very new. It was very odd at first, and I really thought like, oh God, is this kind of like a Bible thumper employer that I'm going to be working for? No, not at all. Basically, like we're at work all day, every day, for our whole lives, and there's obviously things that are happening outside of work that would potentially affect every aspect of your life, not only when you're outside of work, but also when you're in work.
What the chaplaincy program does is it gives a safe place for people to think through and process with a trusted friend, someone that they can confide in. That's not somebody they report to, it's not somebody that they work with, but to begin to think through those issues that they're bringing to work in a healthy and constructive way.
Now, what chaplaincy does for me is, as a business owner, is it allows me to be the business owner and to still provide some support, emotional support, to my employees, to give them someone to call if there's a death in the family, if there's a crisis at home, if there's marital issues, if there's personal issues, whatever it is, there's somebody else that can come alongside them other than me, so that I can do my job and they can do their job when they're here, to comfort them, to guide them, to walk with them, to talk with them. So the return on investment is huge, because you can imagine if you got too close in those personal situations, or you had to also be pulled out, work wouldn't be getting done.
Steve was the stepping stone to me and my husband saving our marriage. We were actually separated for about 6 months, had the divorce papers notarized and signed, just not sent in yet. And Steve was the only one who came to me consistently wanting to help save the marriage.
It helps keep the peace in the shop, because a lot of guys will sit and talk about this guy and that guy, and it's kind of shop talk, and then, it helps to talk about stuff like that. The chaplain, I think, really does help, with personal problems on the shop, conflicts with other employees, and, financial, mental, depression, everything, it really does help out.
My husband and I have been going through a real hard time. We're not able to have children, as a lot of people are, not able to as well. At that point, there was a lot of, growing going on in our company, as well as a lot of emotional feelings about not being able to have kids and starting a family of our own. And Steve really was there for me. But not only that, he took one step further. He also knew of another chaplain in the program in the area that he knew I could benefit from talking with her, and that's Diane.
In my point of view, from the human resources aspect, if I keep one employee that I would have lost without the program, it's paid for itself that year.
When you have a person in crisis, you both want to care for the person, but you also have to make up for the fact that they're not being productive. They may be out for an extended period of time, or there may be fallout from their inability to perform their job function. And so you're trying to deal with the person, and you're trying to deal with the work that needs to get done. And having the chaplains come alongside, and at least they're part of that with you, relieves managers, I think, to be more productive in what they're supposed to be about.
All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that we were talking about this morning about caring for employees' needs, whether those are physical, spiritual, emotional, psychological, mostly through chaplaincy, but also just through having a culture in the organization that is invested in caring for employees. And if you're wondering why we didn't start with a word of prayer, it's because we prayed downstairs before we came back upstairs. So it's covered. So what I want to do now is dive right into our panel. So I'll ask my three friends to come to the stage, Julie, Jill, and Mike, so that we can continue this conversation about caring for employees. And I think you probably know probably all of them. For some of you are from Alexandria, so you might not have heard of any of them. So I'll ask them to actually introduce themselves and tell us what they do and how they got to where they are.
So how long is
How long of an introduction? We plan on
Do
staying
you want the
awake.
life story or?
We plan on staying awake this afternoon, so you know.
So I guess I get to start. My name is Mike Arntzen. I'm the plant manager at Cardinal Glass Industries Fargo Insulating Glass Plant. I've been with Cardinal for 21 years. I was born in Thief River Falls, Minnesota. Graduated from high school in Bow Bells, North Dakota. Attended the United States Military Academy at West Point. Was commissioned as a infantry officer. Was served on active duty for 6 years and stayed on on the reserve status for a number of years. But I I left active duty to come to work here in at the Cardinal IG plant that we were building in Fargo in 1998, and I've been, I guess that was 21 years ago, right? Part of so we make, for those of you who weren't in our earlier session, we make insulating glass units for the residential window industry. So the 2-pane IG unit for a window, and our primary customer in Marvin Windows, but we also service Minn Kota Windows in West Fargo and a number of window companies up in the Winnipeg area and down in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Our mission is to make money by thrilling our customers with our product and our service and taking care of our teammates. And we have 6 strategic objectives in the Cardinal Insulating Glass Company, and the first 2 of those strategic objectives mesh well into this conversation. Our strategic objective number 1 is to become the safest in our industry, the safest company in our industry. And strategic objective number 2 is to make a lifelong, life-lasting, positive impact on those who we work with. And like as I mentioned, those mesh well into our story. And then, so hi Kelsey. Kelsey Caston's our Employee Services Administrator, AKA Human Resources Manager. And I went into her office yesterday and just to kind of pick her brain in preparation for this, and I sat down and she thinks I'm super weird. But I said, Kelsey, how do we care for our employees? And she's looking at me like, Mike, that's your job. What are you asking me that? So she starts naming off all the different programs, that we have that would indicate that we care for our employees and want to recognize them. She said, well, we do Employee of the Month. We have our summer picnic for families. We have our annual banquet at the end of the year. And so all these programs, and then she pauses and she says, you know what? The thing we do that illustrates how we care for our employees is that when we walk out on the plant floor, they know who we are and we know who they are, and we can chat and smile at each other, and they know we care about them. And so I think she's absolutely right. We know what their name is, and we are, we have a relationship. That's one of the number of things, in the workplace chaplaincy program. The first two are that I think, Steve, that what's number one? Yeah. So there was one is relationships is number two. I can't remember. Availability. So those two things, availability and relationships. And if we can somehow communicate and show that we are available and that we want to have a relationship, and not only want to have a relationship, but do have a relationship with those who we work with, then they will begin to, number three, trust us so that they give us permission to enter into their personal lives. And as Joe mentioned, I think, somebody mentioned this morning, we have widgets that we have to make. And when the making of the widgets becomes more important than our relationship with our folks, we get out of balance. And I would argue that if our relationship with our team is the thing that's focused on the most, those of us in senior positions really don't have to worry about the making of the widgets, because our folks will take care of that. Our team will take care of that because they know we care and it's important. I should mention that we have 5 plant values at the Cardinal IG facility in Fargo: family, safety, teamwork, excellence, and respect. And we hire around those values, because I know I'm not going to find somebody to hire in Fargo that has experience in operating a glass cutting machine. Those people don't exist. So it's a lot easier to hire people that are going to fit in well with our family, with our work family and our culture. And if we can do that well, we can train them how to operate the glass cutting machine and how to do what we do. It's a lot easier doing that than vice versa. And with that, I'll hand the mic off to...
Sure. Thank you. Well, I don't love talking about myself. It makes me fairly uncomfortable. But I will say this. Faith didn't know when she invited the 3 of us here today. We didn't know Mike. So nice to meet you. But Julie's actually the reason that I'm here today. She pulled me out of banking 15 plus years ago to work in HR. And I remember her, when we had lunch, she said, the reason that I wanted you on my team was you're just one of those people that stays and helps and cares about others. And so it kind of became my calling in HR, which is great. So we spent a huge chunk of time together as the Julie and Jill team at Bell Bank. So the J team. I currently work with Shields as their leader of human resources, and interestingly enough, when I worked at Bell, I always wondered who was in HR at Shields. And the reason it was such a big question mark is there wasn't anybody in HR at Shields, so that person didn't exist. So I joined that team about 6 years ago, and honestly, it's been one of my most exciting challenges that I've had. Just both establishing HR in a company that large that hasn't necessarily had that presence in the past. But now we're at the point where it's transitioning from HR processes and practices to truly how do we care for our people. And when you're in the business of retail, so much of our time is focused on the business and maybe not enough time on our people. And so, you know, our mission as a company is to become the best retailer in the USA in both the eyes and minds of our customers, associates, and business partners. And we truly have to walk that every day in what we do as leaders. And so it's been an interesting challenge, and it's been one that I've been pretty excited about because caring for people is I think what got me into HR so long ago. It really is about taking care of people. You know, as a company, I would say Shields hasn't necessarily ventured into having, you know, the fluffy stuff, the ping pong tables, the slides, all the things that we think make people happy in the workplace. Granted, we do have a Ferris wheel. We don't ride that very often, actually. We've got a lot of fun stuff, obviously, in our stores, but that's not really what makes people happy at the end of the day, and that's not really how we show care for people. So when I came to Shields, we decided to start HR teams in every store location. We've got 27 stores across the United States. And the decision to do that was truly because we, you know, take the Fargo store as an example. We've got 25 assistant store leaders in that store, and they're primarily focused on the business. Granted, they're leading people and they're spending time with people, but they're focused on teaching the business. And it's very difficult to welcome people in to start talking about their needs outside of work when we're all hustle and bustle about the business. And so we developed our HR teams to really be there to hear people, to listen, and to support them when they bring all that baggage to work from outside, from at home, from with their families. And it's been an interesting adventure because, you know, we're used to being up on our feet and not sitting at desks, but you have to be there, you have to have that open door, and you have to be available for people in a very safe and private place for them to be able to come forward and really talk about the things that keep them from being great at their work. And that's truly what it is. About 5 years ago, as I was really navigating this new role, one of the things that became very evident to me that we needed to work on was just dealing with mental health issues in the workplace. And so I attended a suicide prevention training course to just educate myself. I think oftentimes as HR leaders or business leaders, we think there's a very defined line in the sand between where we help people and where we support the business. And secondly, I'm not a doctor or psychologist. I've never been trained in those things. So really, who am I to support somebody dealing with mental health issues? But I came to realize very quickly that we are the people they're going to go to. It was mentioned earlier that the workplace has truly become the place in people's lives where they spend the most time, where they make the deepest connections, and in some cases it's replacing family and friends and faith. And so as a business, we needed to educate ourselves on how do we help people deal with life situations in the workplace. And so my goal has been to really help our HR teams to find the time to sit and listen to people and to help them walk through some of those things. And it's taken various shapes and forms in how we help people. We've sat in hospital rooms with them when they didn't want a parent sitting next to them when they're dealing with suicidal thoughts. You know, we're adjusting schedules for people that, because of their medication, can't get to work in the morning. I mean, it takes on various shapes and forms. So I would say for us right now, our focus is helping people with life at work.
Thank you. First of all, I want to just say that I was so honored to have Jill on our HR team, and she's exactly right. We hire everybody on our HR team and culture teams at Bell who have the biggest hearts, and Jill definitely does, so let's hear it for Jill. And I also want to let you know, I did just tell Jill at the table, hey, if you want to come back, you always have a home here at Bell. But we have a huge partnership with Shields. We absolutely love Shields. First of all, I spend about $500 to $800 every time I walk in there. Yes, and I try not to get there too often or I would need another part-time job. But secondly, Steve Shield and Mr. Solberg are very good friends and have been in business for years and years and years. And Steve is on our board. So we have a huge partnership. So when you're having me and Jill talk, you'll probably hear a lot of the same sound bites. I'm Julie Peterson Klein, and I have been blessed to be at Bell for 20 years. I started when I was 10. And I'm just so honored to work at Bell Bank because people ask, why are you still at Bell Bank for 20 years? And this is the reason why I'm at Bell Bank. I get to lead with my heart 24/7, 365. I don't have to change who I am when I get to work and change who I am when I leave for work. I get to just lead with my heart. And in the video earlier, they talked a little bit about crossing a line, you know, caring too much for people. And I know you've heard me say this, Jill. I will go up on any jury stand and tell the judge, I did care too much. I crossed a line. I mean, when you're going to that hospital room, sometimes you have to make a gut decision. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that the judge would see your caring heart as you were doing that. So I think that we need to lead with our hearts at all times. Our values at Bell Bank are very simple. People always say, you guys are very successful. How do you do that? And I always say it's a very simple business model. People matter. People are our number one priority. And I know we can go on and on today about all of the programs that we offer, which are amazing. But that's not really what I want to touch on. That's for a different seminar, a 3-day seminar on culture when we're talking about the programs and things that we offer to our employees. But what Mike and Jill both said is that it's really caring about the employees. We want healthy, happy, engaged employees every single day. I have had employees tell me that have went through major tragedies in their lives, and I'll come and find them and say, are you sure you should be here today? I really feel that you should take some time off, a few extra days, and take care of yourself. And they will look right at you and give you a hug and say, I am most happy here and I am surrounded by love and support. So I want to be here for 8 hours today and forget about that worry outside of the bank. The other thing I was trying to think of, you know, when you're caring for employees, what are our biggest challenges? And Jill hit on it. I didn't want to bring this up today, but it truly is mental illness within our team members at our companies. You guys, we have a great community and a great environment for our employees to come to every day, but I can't control our world out there. And it's a scary place, and there's a lot of ups and downs with each and every one of us in all of our families. And I always mention at staff meetings to our team members that if we're gonna work together for the rest of our lives, 2 things are gonna happen. We're gonna age gracefully together, number 1, and then secondly, we are going to lean on each other. And our first value is family atmosphere, and that's what that means. Every single one of us will go through tragedy in our life. I don't know of anybody that has not been hit by it. But when you go through a tragedy at Bell Bank, you are surrounded by love and support. And Mr. Solberg and Michael hear me a lot say, they'll be worried about an employee, and I'll just shoot them this email. No worries, we are rallying. And they know what that means, that we are there for these people 24/7, 365, whatever they need. We realize that our employees are, if we don't have our employees and they aren't healthy, happy, and engaged, we really have nothing. Lastly, I just want to say Bell Bank, you guys have heard about us in the community. We are a bank. We sell checking and savings accounts and all kinds of products, loans, mortgage loans, but that's not what we're really about. At the end of the day, we are trying to make the world a better place, and we do that through our Pay It Forward program, which has made all of us better people. I always say that Mr. Solberg and Michael, when you were hired, when every one of our employees were hired, that you are the best. We will only hire the best at Bell. But the Pay It Forward program, through 11 years of giving back to people in need, it's 11 years, 11,000 stories, and $13.5 million in giving that our employees have given back, has completely changed our lives. We are better people. Our hearts are bigger, and all of our employees know that we need to lead with our hearts and we need to add value to the world.
Okay, so let me shift it back to you guys. What questions do you want to ask these three wonderful people? Not all at once?
Somebody has to be the first. And of course, Mike, you know it's coming at you. You use the T word, trust. And this is an interesting word. As you age, you think about that word a lot. What really does that mean? Trust between employee and management. How have you defined that over the course of your 21 years in management?
Yeah, so I'm not very, I'm horrible at defining things. I'm not, it's one of those things that, right, it's hard to define, but you recognize it, right? I think being available and approachable, and, you know, we work hard to make sure that we don't, obviously we all have roles to do in the plant, and you know, well, I'll just tell you a story. So we went, one of our goals is to become world class in safety, and so through this we decided we needed a roadmap to get there, and the roadmap that we chose was to pursue inclusion in OSHA's Voluntary Protection Program, Star Worksite program. And so we brought in a retired OSHA employee as a consultant during the course of, right, kind of a few months before we were gonna have our VPP certification visit. And just to make sure that we were well prepared. And so part of becoming VPP certified is showing a culture of care. And so this individual, this consultant, was working his way through the plant along with our safety manager, and one of his questions was asking, do you feel that management cares about you? And this stumped a lot of our teammates because they were like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, does management, satisfy your needs with respect to safety? Do you feel that if you go to management with a safety concern, and they were looking at him like, I still don't understand. And he was looking at them like, how do you not understand this? Finally, someone said, well, who are you talking about? Who's this management? And he goes, well, like Mike and Marty and Dustin, for example. And he said, oh, Mike and Marty and Dustin, of course they care about me. Absolutely. They didn't see us as management, right? And we were just part of the team. We all have our roles that we play on the team. And so that was kind of an illustration of how we've developed these relationships, how approachable we are. We're not some big manager up in the front office. We're Mike and Marty and Kelsey and Dustin, right? And you see the trust come out only after you have it, right? You don't see the trust when you don't have trust. So when you see folks coming in, obviously troubled, and saying, hey, do you have a second? or grabbing us out on the floor and pulling us aside and saying, hey, I need to talk to you. Or more often than not, they're not pulling me aside, they're pulling Dustin aside or Kelsey aside or their team leader aside and saying, hey, I need help. And we let folks know right away when they come. Family is one of our values, and we let them know, look, I give them my business card, and I'm sure to point out that it's got my home phone number on it. And they're like, why are you giving me my home? I said, well, shouldn't you have the home phone number of your family member, right? Who are you going to call when you need help? That's why we're there. But I also let them know, hey, out of respect for your team leader, they're really good at their jobs. Part of their job, not just part of their job, probably the most important part of their job is taking care of you, is supporting you. And whether it's in work or out of work, you're part of our family now, and if you need help, you need to ask. Don't be afraid. And so and that's what we're hoping to cultivate, that level of trust so that our teammates feel comfortable enough to talk about those things. And then they can worry about making the widgets, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think it's such a good question, Austin, so thanks for asking it. For us at Shields, I would say it really was a shift between sitting down with people under traditional management or leadership styles where we would simply talk to them and try to solve their problems for them. And we've just totally shifted away from that and really tried to sit next to people more as a coach and to listen and to actually help them self-reflect on what they can do for themselves. And sometimes those are really tough conversations. You're telling people maybe what they don't want to hear, a little bit of harsh reality, but at the end of the day, I think that's when people are the most grateful because they didn't just sit down with somebody that told them what they wanted to hear, or they didn't sit down with somebody who just wasn't listening to them and thinking about the business. And that's truly how we've established trust in our HR teams, new to Shields, is just really listening to people and helping them navigate the situation that's best for them. And that comes through self-reflection. You know, we ask people questions when they have conflict with others in the workplace. You know, is there anything maybe you think you may have done that would have contributed to the concern or the tension in your relationship? So that self-reflection, I think about it for myself and how it helps me become a better person every day. It builds trust between you and your team when they know that no matter what, when they come to you, they're going to get an honest answer. They're not just going to get an answer.
When I think of trust, I instantly thought of some of these acquisitions where we come in and we buy a company and they may have 200 people, and we just realize through that process we have to earn that trust. It's not going to be just given to us on day one. I have had people tell me before, I didn't really believe that the culture was as much of a caring culture as you guys stated it would be when I first joined you, and we don't take that personal. We thank them for their feedback, and we want to show them the trust. You can't just tell somebody you need to trust us. We want to show you that. The other thing is how we approach our work at Bell is people first, workload second. So maybe I'm at a conference for an entire day and I get back to my desk at 3 o'clock and I might have 200 emails in our HR team. We've been getting back to people, but I might have quite a few emails in my box. I'm gonna skim those emails and I'm gonna get back to the people issues first. And it really isn't up to me as the Chief Culture Officer at Bell. If somebody sent me in an email, it isn't up to me to decide if that email is important or not. To the person that sent it to me, it's important to them, not for me to bury it down in my email box. We also try to answer every question, and especially the people issues, because if they're worried about something, a son that maybe entered a rehab facility last night. Some of these things are true that I'm talking about. A husband who just passed away and there's a funeral in the next couple of days, whatever it might be. Those are the employees and the team members that we're gonna get back to first. And when you show up for those things and follow through and do what you say you're gonna do, you can gain followers and trust pretty quickly. So we work very hard on getting back to every single employee. And Polly, I need to call her out. Stand up, Polly. Stand up. Polly's one of our senior managers at Bell. Let's hear it for Polly. But talk about a caring manager. We have 145 managers across our company, and culture is in every area of our company. So Polly, I was kind of snickering when she said she was coming over to the care conference, because she's got one of the biggest hearts within our company and within our community. So we need everybody running in the same direction, carrying out our values, which are family atmosphere, unequaled personal service, and paying it forward to the communities we serve. And we have to really, truly earn that trust.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kara Kluvers, and I'm with Prairie St. John's. And first of all, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for not only recognizing the mental health concerns that we have in our community, but also providing that care to your associates. We love that. We want people to be out there and be change agents. I think we heard this morning, be a change agent. Every one of us can be that. My question is this. We help others, and we want to help provide care and support to one another. But administrative or leadership levels also have compassion fatigue from helping others. I want to know, each and every one of you, what do you do to take care of yourself?
Well, I could lead us in a jazzercise workout right now if anybody's interested. That is actually a really good point, and I think just speaking for Shields, as we've developed HR teams, a lot of our leadership team members that came into HR were asked to be in that role, having no clue what was going to step in their doorway every single day. And we have found that some have, walked away from that position because it is too much. They carry that burden coming home. And so we've really tried to teach our teams, sorry, I'm going off a little bit on a tangent, that you can still care for people without carrying their burden. And again, that goes back to asking them good questions and asking them to reflect and find solutions to their issues, because otherwise you take on that burden, you take it home, you have a very hard time processing those feelings because you're trying to fix everybody's life outside of work, which is very difficult. So yeah, I actually started teaching jazzercise about 6 months ago. It just happened to be, I've sat many, many years at my desk and just put my head down and worked really hard and realized that that was not good for me as a person. I needed to look out for my own health. And so for me, exercise has been kind of my release for bringing all of that stuff home. So get up in front of a group and teach.
You don't teach jazzercise?
I'm laughing. Okay, Dr. Legler was here about 4 or 5 years ago. We had a group of students in here, and they asked me, Mr. Solberg, and Michael Solberg, tell us about work-life balance, and none of us wanted to answer that question. That's not good. But I am a different type of person. I am just like my dad. I absolutely love to work. And I always told my mom, it could be worse. I could be addicted to something else, but I love to work. My cup gets filled up by helping people and adding value to the world every day. I wake up and I don't think, what's in it for Julie today? I'm thinking about how I can serve others and help others. But I do some fun things. I have hobbies outside of Bell. I love to go to film festivals. I've worked at the Oscars the past 3 years as an outlet to go out and be creative. I decided a couple of years ago, I'm getting really old here, I better do this or it's not gonna happen. I get massages during the summer. A lot of Fridays you won't see me at the bank so that I can spend time with my 10, 9, and 7-year-old. I would love to go to one of Jill's jazzercise classes. I don't know if I can do it. I've had 2 knee surgeries on my left knee, but maybe do you have a low impact? Okay, for older people? Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to answer this question. You know, it seems like when I get stressed out, I go for a walk in the plant, and my folks lift me up. And so, for as much of the, I don't know how much burden I have for carrying other people's burdens, but for that amount of burden that I'm carrying, there's probably 300 times more other joyful stuff from the rest of the team lifting me up. So we help each other out.
For Bell and for Shields, you guys have multiple locations all over the country now. How do you basically track and watch as far as especially the cultural health in so many remote locations?
I would say that's definitely a work in progress. I mean, we are big and we're continuing to grow. And it is one of our biggest concerns is how do we keep the culture strong within our company? One thing I would say that Shields has done well since 1902, since they started, truly was having solid core values that are still present today. Julie mentioned it earlier. It starts with hiring. It starts with who you choose to come in and be a part of your business. When you pick the right people with good character, they just naturally fit into your culture. And so when we go open new store locations, we try to bring a good team of people that know Shields culture that can now enter a new market and teach it to anybody new coming in from the outside. And then it's just little things. We as a company look at our turnover to see, are we a place that people enjoy working? And if they do choose to leave, why are they leaving us? And what can we do differently to continue to make it a better place to work for our people?
So regarding growing and being more places within our nation, basically we need to show up. We still need to be present. So, my job has evolved and changed a lot the last probably 8 years. A lot of times I'm in our New Mexico office, our Phoenix office. I'm in Minneapolis, usually Tuesdays and Wednesdays, depending on what entails. But our executive team and our senior management team is very committed to being present that way too. You can't build a culture sitting in my office here in Fargo. So we work on that. We have programs internally that, I believe culture is contagious. And when people are leading with their hearts and they're seeing other people leading with their hearts, and we do a lot of that through storytelling as well, through our BellShare site and sharing stories and recognizing people, it's all really contagious. I forgot to say this earlier, but we also want an open door policy with all of our team members all across the nation that we are available. You will see us, you will get to know us, we will travel to your location. Our 10 employees in New Mexico, they joined us about 6 months ago, and I've probably been to New Mexico 4 or 5 times already, down there spending time with them. I feel like I know them and they're part of our family. So that's been wonderful. And I just think that we all need to continue to lead with our hearts and make sure that we find ways to care about those people, even though they're an extension. Video conferencing has done wonders. I mean, I have meetings with Phoenix team members, New Mexico. You can be right there and they can see you and see your personality shine through. I see Polly's nodding. She's got team members in many different markets as well. So that creates the connection as well.
I know very little about HR, but I think it's Julie mentioned about HR teams at Shields. And or you're Jill?
It happens to us all the time.
Okay, well, whichever.
I
But
love it
and
'cause I'm older than her.
you all, okay, Julie then also has teams, but I'm just wondering what kind of training you do. I mean, you've talked about teaching people to listen and ask questions and have self-reflection. That doesn't come about automatically because the more common practice is to try and solve somebody's problem when they ask you a question. So you must have some kind of training programs that you use for people that are helping with this teamwork kind of thing, right?
Yep. one thing we do every year is we bring all of our HR teams together for a week-long university here in Fargo, and it's, for them, it's a chance for them to get into a room with a bunch of people that are like them. People joke it's the hugging university at Shields, because it's a group of people that truly care about our associates and care about each other. And so we come together one time a year and we will spend as much time as we need training that group on how do you not only learn how to care for people, but you are the catalyst for bringing this back to your store and teaching your entire leadership team how to be better at caring for people. We've brought in various groups in our community to teach us about suicide prevention. And, we talk about doing better performance reviews. How can we be a better coach versus a judge and jury? And so our teams truly then are tasked with going back to their stores and teaching it to their leadership teams. I think a challenge for us is we're just large enough now that, most people aren't probably gonna know who I am, but they will see the work that we're doing through our people in the store. And we have to continue to do that. It's kind of like the pay it forward model. We teach 3, they teach 3, they teach 3. You have to just make that model of caring for people something that becomes everyday life in your company.
We, similar to Jill, have internal classes and sessions, but the biggest thing, and I know they do this as well, is hiring right at the beginning. So we do like strengths finders, predictive index, DISC, personality profiling. So I'm looking for people. I mean, Jill got her job because after every event, she would stay back. Every other person would just leave. Julie can clean it all up. And Jill stayed back and said, hey, would you like some help today? And I just kept watching her and knowing she's got a huge heart. She knows how to go above and beyond the call of duty. So that's why I hired Jill in Human Resources and now Amy Wolf, and she's the exact same way, just going above and beyond for people. So I think it's hiring right at the beginning. We've went away from performance reviews where the manager is doing all of the talking to performance development program where the employee and team member, they come in and present to us how they're doing, where they're at with their goals, talking professionally, how is everything going, and personally, how is everything going. Making sure that we have we need everybody happy at work and outside of work to be their best selves.
The foundation for a lot of what we're talking about here today, I'm a pastor. The foundation for a lot of what we're talking about here today comes from, or ought to come from our faith, from the roots. We're at a Christian college. I'm a Christian pastor. The foundation of our Christian faith. Yet, people are leaving the churches in droves. So where's that going to come from if everyone's leaving the churches? But my question to you is, what do you have to say to the churches? Hey, churches, wake up. You're missing out on this, that, the other thing. You're not doing this, that, the other thing. Here's what we need. Here's what you're not addressing for us.
None of us want to answer that question. I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. In business, a lot of companies are looking for all the fluff they can do to try to make people happy. And I think in some ways we have church structures that are kind of trying to draw people in with, coffee and church and all those types of things. But you try to look at what's sustainable long term. And I felt this way working for Bell and for Shields, is that I work for a company that I work hard. I work for my salary. I feel very, very fairly compensated because I know I have leaders like I had in Julie looking out for me as a person, but that comes with tough love too. And at the end of the day, work is work. And I think of faith the same way, that when I go to church on Sundays, I'm not there to be entertained. I'm there to self-reflect and think about how I can walk out being a better person every day. And so as a business, we try to teach that. We aren't here to just give people all the fluff. We're here to give them the things that are going to create internal happiness long-term in their life, not just a short-term gratification of some kind.
Well, I think one thing for sure is that we consider ourselves at Cardinal IG in Fargo to be a very inclusive place to work and welcoming to everybody, and we have to intentionally focus on staying that way and embracing that and even challenging ourselves to make sure that we are, and that's what we're doing. And so perhaps, you know, the churches need to take a look at that as well.
At Bell, we've tried to create a community where people want to get up in the morning and come to work. And I can honestly say in 20 years, I've never got up in the morning and thinking I have to go to Bell Bank. I actually can't wait to get there. And we just want a community where people are engaged when they're there and they have a happy, safe environment to come to every day. Regarding faith, a few things that came to mind when they were answering is, you know, our company and every company has a culture. And we think that that's even a personality. You know, Bell has a culture and its own personality and kind of what we're all about. And I think that each church will have that as well. And we need to we at Bell, I just do not feel qualified to talk about a church, or I would be a pastor myself. So I always be careful with that. But at Bell, we just want to create a wonderful environment that's contagious, that it's way more than checking, savings, loans. It's so much more than that. It's adding value to the world and touching their heart. I always say in every single meeting I'm in, I want to make people laugh. I want to make them tear up a little bit. I want to touch their heart, because then when they go out and they're working with other team members at Bell, working with our customers and people in our community, they're going to do the same thing. So that's what we try to do. Invest in our people, invest in their hearts, and I think that all of the churches actually are doing a pretty good job of that to bring people in.
We're not intentionally trying to drive them away.
All right, so who wants to tackle that question from the audience? That will give these guys a chance to catch their breath. You want to answer that question, Leanne? Okay.
It bridges the question about training that Willie asked as well. I will tell you the best leadership training I got as a young manager, and I was very blessed to work for American Express Financial Advisors early on in my career. I was a manager at 26. At 27, I enrolled at my church in Stephen Ministry training. That was absolutely the best management training I got. So if you have befriender programs or Stephen Ministry programs in your churches, get the people who want to be managers enrolled in those programs, even if they don't become a long-term Stephen minister or befriender, because that training, when it comes to learning how to listen and just be with a person, not take someone's burden on, but be a part of their healing process, there was nothing more powerful. I still, in my consulting, I still bring out pieces from the Stephen Ministry training that have helped me. So that would be the bridge I would talk about between church and work.
Anyone else want to answer that question? Okay, Steve.
Leanne, just to key off of what you just said, so a practical story along those lines of the power of that kind of change in thinking for a local church. I remember when I was a pastor in a local church and was interviewing somebody, a candidate for Stephen Ministry, to be a candidate to go through the training. This was a school administrator. She had a tough job, and yet she felt like she needed to get some training to serve the local church in the area of care ministry. And when she interviewed, she described for my colleague and myself the work that she was doing. It became very clear to us this training was not so that she could serve the local body of believers. This training was for her to equip her in the job that she was already called to do. So we said, would you like to join this program for the express purpose of helping you with the job God has already called you to do, not to come alongside somebody else in the local. She was absolutely overjoyed. She said, this church would do that for me? He said, yes, it's very clear what God has called you to do. And our job as a local church is to equip you, do everything we can. Stephen Ministry is just part of that training for you. And again, it's just a change of thinking, a change in paradigm for most local churches to retool, to become equipping churches for the ministry that God has already called the parishioners to out in the marketplace.
Well, I'm not. I'm a physician, so I just have. There are sometimes healthcare organizations might have some culture issues, and I don't know if they're exactly the same kind of issues as the kind of companies that you guys are working for. And I just like to get some education about how importable what you're doing is to other potential cultures, and whether it would be significantly different, or whether maybe everybody should receive spiritual training about how to listen first, and then they could go to any culture and make it better. How do you feel about that?
So we've been, as a company, we've really been focused. We're building a leadership program called Bedrock, and so prior to beginning that journey and throughout that journey, so Bedrock is our leadership training for new team leaders, or all of our team leaders, supervisors, and our new team leaders, so we can train those young leaders on values-based leadership. So we've been exposing ourselves to different values-based leadership programs. And so, I mean, we've been to the Thayer Leadership Development Program at West Point. We just got back from Disney, the Disney Institute. All of our supervisors now have been through Dale Carnegie. All our plant has been exposed to an outfit called Coaching to Connect. And we've been out to the Lincoln Leadership Institute at Gettysburg. And I could go on and on and on. What all these programs have to offer are values-based leadership. And it'll blow your mind that all these different unique leadership training programs all kind of go back to values-based leadership, and they complement each other, and it's applicable whether you're making glass or doing heart surgery or, you know, defending our nation overseas in the Army. I mean, it's all the same stuff. And so I'd say it's absolutely applicable. It's applicable across cultures, across the world. And so, yeah, I mean, if there are, regardless of what you do, where you're doing it, why you're doing it, it's applicable.
The only thing that I wanted to add to that, I agree with everything that you said, but you need people then who are going to go out of all of those training sessions, which we have many of those as well at Bell, and send people out to different leadership. And he is right, it goes back to values-based. But if you don't have the right people in the right positions that truly, genuinely want to carry out the culture every single day, and it isn't today I'm going to focus on culture, tomorrow it might be, you know, something else, and the next day I'll think about it, and then Thursday I might try to reach out to a few people. That's not how Bell is. We are obsessed in a good way. I laugh when I use that word because it sometimes can be a negative, but we are focusing on culture every single day, and it really starts with our ownership. The Solberg and Snortland families, they believe in it, and they've invested many dollars on an annual basis to make sure that we can carry out the programs, the leadership programs, all of the family events. But at the end of the day, you need people with big hearts that genuinely care about people, and they're gonna take action every single day and carry it out. Because you can sit in training, I believe, forever and ever and ever, and you can come out and you're still maybe gonna have the same culture if you're not committed to carrying it out.
One thing that's been really interesting for me coming into Shields and, working with so many different store locations and some very, very talented leaders in our company, I just always kind of laugh every time I hear them say things like, well, our store is different. I mean, we're all, right? If you go to a Shields store, they're almost identical. Everywhere that you go, the service is the same, everything's the same. Yet they come back to we're different. And I disagree with that. When I left Bell and went to work for Wallworks, talk about a little bit of a culture shock from banking to, the trucking industry. And how the heck am I going to hire diesel techs when I've spent the last 10 years hiring tellers? It's not that different. You're looking for good people. So my response to that would be, people are people. We're the same. It doesn't matter what company we work in, people are people. And it's how you treat people that matters. And that's what you teach in your leadership is it's how you treat people that matters. So I don't think it matters what industry that you're in. Julie and I attended a seminar about a month ago, and one thing that stuck out from that seminar to me is the definition of HR, which is our sole responsibility is to manage the energy of our people. It does not matter what the content is. We are dealing with people and the feelings they have around a situation, and that is our goal, is to manage the energy of our people. We redid our performance evaluation process at Shields about 2 years ago, and one of the things we made a major shift on was that review is so much less about the actual job that they're doing and like 99.9% about the person. How they treat people. Are they good learners and listeners? How teachable are they? Those are the things that matter. When you think about issues in your workplace, it's about culture. It's not about the job task at all. It's about how people interact with each other. It's how they treat the customer, how they treat their coworkers. We had a huge eye-opening experience when we started talking about customer service, not just about the customer coming in the door, but about how I would treat Julie at work every day. She's my coworker. I could make her life miserable or I could make it very enjoyable. So it's just really, how do you manage the energy of your people differently? And it doesn't matter what you're doing. But to Julie's point, you have to have strong support and leadership at the very top that believes in that message as well.
All right, so, I can't not give her the mic, so, I was gonna ask the last question.
Well, I just wanted to say really quickly that I am a customer of both Bell Bank and of Shields, and I'm not a customer that I know of the glass company, but I do believe in transparency, so if that.
What kind of windows do you have?
I don't know.
Probably has our glass in it.
Probably. Anyway, they're great, whatever they are. But one of the things, I feel nurtured and engaged and recognized whenever I walk into either Shields or into Bell Bank, and really it's a very affirming process. And even if I walk out of Shields, they still thank me if I haven't purchased anything. So that's amazing to me, which I think is wonderful. But how, we're dealing this is all kind of warm and really wonderful, but we're dealing in a world that has isolation and incivility and polarization, and how have, and you have stayed the same basically. 20 years ago, I could have gone into Shields and felt exactly the same, and the same thing with Bell Bank. So how has it changed over the years for you? What have been the greatest challenges in terms of maintaining this culture, making certain that somebody like me who walks in always feels as if they're welcomed, because we're not in the same culture. From my perspective, we didn't have the same kind of isolation, the same kind of technology, which sometimes causes isolation, and we certainly didn't have, to my memory, maybe I was too busy raising children, but the polarization and the incivility. So how has that changed and challenged you, and how have you managed to maintain the healthy cultures that you have?
Well, I think first and foremost, both Bell and Shields have had family involved in leadership forever. that have just truly lived those values day in and day out and done a very good job in teaching those values to the people, but making sure that they hire the right people coming through the door to hold true to that. I mean, we're in an environment right now where there's not a lot of employees to pick from, right? Like, hiring is hard. And, you know, when I came to Shields, hiring was very difficult. There was a sign on every street corner looking for help. And it would have been very easy for our leadership teams at that point to seriously walk into an interview and just go like this and say, you're hired. And we tried very, very hard not to do that, because we know how important it is to the future of our company to keep good people in leadership. And once they come in, they grow. In fact, I'm probably an anomaly in that company. I think everybody's grown up in Shields and never worked anywhere else. So the hiring is really where it starts, because you have to pick the right people coming in, and you can't waver from those values when you sit down to pick people to work for your company. So it goes back to character.
I think too, I agree with all of Jill's comments. It's just, if, you know, the past 20 years that I've been at Bell, we cared 100% along the way. And I think the next 20 years, we're gonna have to care 150%. I mean, we're gonna have to up our game even more, but we need to stay true to our value, which is people matter. Family atmosphere, unequal personal service, and paying it forward back to the communities. We're trying to create an environment that they wanna come to every day. The world is a little scary, and I'm such a positive person, I hate to even bring that up, but there are a lot of external things that happen to all of our families, and we need to be there for them when that happens, and we need to show up. We need to continue to surprise people. We need to really listen. And if they're having surgery, if their mom's having surgery, if their daughter has got something special, I try to listen everywhere that I'm at and jot down a reminder for myself to reach out. And Mike tells me a lot, how are you gonna continue to do that, Julie? That's not gonna scale. And I look right at him and say, I will die trying, because it's a proven track record. It works, but it can't just be 1 in 5 and 10 people. It needs to be all 145 of our managers across our huge company. And then our employees here all the time. It takes 1,300. We don't have 5,000, but we have 1,300, and we're growing. But it's 1,300 people that build a culture, and we all, wherever you're at, we need to care for those people. And it would be like all of your tables. Those are the people that day that you're gonna care about and be there for them. So all of us here today, first of all, you guys thanked us, but I wanna thank you guys, because you guys coming to a CARE conference on a Friday, May 31, the first 90-day degree thing, that means that you guys care an awful lot. And we need, like, every employer to be at this event going forward, because every single day what we're focusing on is our people first. All of the work and the business and the checking and savings accounts that we need to get open and help people, we're gonna do that really, really, really well too, but we're gonna care first and then do the work second.
So you mentioned all the incivility in the world, and I'm wondering if you meant that literally or figuratively, because at Cardinal, we have a very diverse team. We have folks from 5 of the 7 continents. We do not have Australians or Antarcticans, but we have, our team is knit from folks born in 31 different countries. In some cases, we have people that were on opposite sides of some line somewhere in the world, and so they've seen and experienced that incivility, and what especially those people, but I think everyone is looking for, is a place where they can come every day and feel safe, protected, and cared about, and loved. I think Joe was he talked about loving on people at his company, and we talk about love at work too, and it surprises people a lot of times. In fact, we had a labor relations expert in to help us. He was another one of these consultant guys. He's coming in to kind of assess where we are, how our culture is, and he really got stuck on that word love. It's in our handbook. And he says, "Are you really sure you want love in your handbook?" And we're like, "Yeah, we want love in our handbook. It's our handbook." And he said, "Well, I think you should take the word love out of your handbook." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not taking the word love out of my handbook." And so he said, "Well, what if I'm the greatest guy? I come and I apply, I take a look at your handbook, and I tell you, look, I'm going to come here, I'm going to work hard every day. I just have a problem with this word love. I don't think I'm going to ever love you." And I was like, I didn't know what to say, and I was in the room with our Kelsey's predecessor, who's now kind of moved on to a different role in Cardinal. And she looks at him and she says, "Well, Frank, what I tell you is you may not be a very good fit for this team." He probably wouldn't get hired. So, but anyway, that's my 2 cents.
All right, so we have one last question, and then
Actually, Mike was going to kind of the area I was going to ask about, and thank you for being the exceptional companies you are, and I am a customer of all 3 of yours. So anyway, values inform relationships, and relationships are about connections and attachments. And even the best of companies are going to experience times when the attachment just isn't going to work. How do you live out your values at those times?
Kelsey worked at Disney for a period of time when she was going through a college internship. We just got back, our leadership team at Cardinal just got back from the Disney Institute, and I thought Disney had the greatest way of putting it. They say, "We just help those people find the magic elsewhere."
It's truly that simple. I mean, we often say Shields isn't for everybody, and not in a negative way. There are lots of different companies with different cultures and different values than what we have. So that's why we work really hard to find the right people to work for our company. And sometimes you do have to help them find something else. And we try to do that in a way that doesn't make people feel like they're not a part of Shields, because we ultimately want to promote them to customer when they leave. That's our goal. But there's a place for everybody, and so we talk about, go do something that you love. We want you to work in a place where you love getting up, going to work every day, and if you don't love it here, that's totally fine. You will love it somewhere else. Let's figure out where that is for you.
My response is pretty similar, but we do work quite a bit. Like onboarding team members to Bell is so important to me, but offboarding them when they leave Bell is even more important, because I want people to leave if the attachment isn't there. Mike Solberg will get up in town hall meetings and say, "You know what, if you don't love it here and you don't love all of the change that's going on, because we can't control the change, we have to change or we will not be a leader in banking. Go see JP, she will help you, she will have coffee with you," and I want to help people. There is life after Bell. I have had people sitting in my office before, and I have asked them this question and said, "Can you please answer me honestly?" And I say, "I think you love Bell Bank, but I don't know if you love getting in your car and coming to your desk and doing the actual duties for 8 hours every day." And they're like, "Do you want me to tell you the truth?" And I'm like, "Yes." "No, I don't love my job." That is okay. And I don't want to treat anybody differently if they've been employed at our company for 15 or 20 years and they decide to leave our company. I love all people and want to help them transition to a company that they absolutely love to get up in the morning. And you'd be surprised how many people I've helped over the past 30 years, and it's fun to see them out in the community, and they come up to you and give you a huge hug, and you said it was going to be okay, Julie, and it is okay, and I'm in a happy place. So we really try to work hard to make sure that that transition from Bell is a very smooth one.
It's very rare that we ask people to leave Cardinal because of values, honestly. So I say, I kind of made that joke. No, we truly believe that nobody comes to work with ill intentions. And if people are having problems living by the values, we go 110% down the road of let's help them get back on track and living within the values through education, help, working with that person, getting that teammate to understand that their behaviors aren't living up to the values or living within the realm of the values, and why and how perhaps by changing their behaviors or changing something outside of work that's affecting their performance at work, you know, so that we get back on track. I shouldn't have said we help them find the magic elsewhere, because we really don't. It's very rare that we have to do that. And it's very rare, honestly, that somebody, even if they are living outside the values, can't see the value in getting back on track.
Well, what a nice place to pause. I realize that we could go on because there is a wealth of collective intelligence in this room, but it's 1 o'clock and I always stop on time. Mike almost didn't make that happen, but we're good.
I always say you got to have faith.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you all of you for coming. Thank you, Steve Cook back there, because he flew all the way from Madison to come and share the day with us and teach us so much about chaplaincy. If you want to know more about it, do please talk to him or the other chaplain in the room. He's right there, Greg. He can tell you a little bit more, and Deb can tell you a lot more about workplace chaplaincy. Also, Jerry introduced us to Living Free. She said a little bit about it as a program. So if you want more information, she does have more information at the back, or she can talk to you about it. And one more thing where's Pastor Joe? All right, Pastor Joe from Bethel Church told me I probably should point this out. How many of you know about the Global Leadership Summit? Okay, for those of you who don't know, it's a great summit. I've never attended it because it always conflicts with something else. However, they do host the summit at Bethel. So if you want to know more about that, please talk to Pastor John. Otherwise, my hope is that I will see you back here, even those of you from Alexandria, September the 13th, when Dan Malmstrom will be talking to us about vocational ministry. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime or your morning with us. We really appreciate it.